Live from the bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York, it's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening. Glad you came aboard. Glad you're listening to us either on the 365 family of apps, whether it be the iPhone, the Android, the Alexa, or just streaming over the internet. We're glad you're with us tonight. Lots to talk about, great guests. And as always, we started off with our Major League Baseball report with John Coppinger. It's sponsored by our friends over at Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO's Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Cardboard Memories is always buying collections large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at absolutely no cost. Cardboard Memories is located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike, Comac, New York. Visit them on the web at cardboardmemories.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram.
Or come down there on the 5th.
Right, and remember that address because we'll be talking more about that, and BT Talks Baseball after us will be talking more about that as well. But as always, we started off with some baseball talk with John Coppinger. So we can rest assured the New York Mets now do have a general manager. And you know what? And I have to say this, you know, we all know what a minefield Twitter can be and the media. And I think this was really overplayed because, yes, the Mets were, searching and some media sources said people were refusing them and didn't want the job, this and that, and the Mets were falling behind everyone. But in essence, the Mets did everything they needed to do up until the point. They gave the qualifying offers. Those didn't work. We knew that Conforto probably wasn't going to take it. We thought Syndergaard was, but it didn't matter because
that's the question, though. Did it matter if Epler or somebody were on board 3 weeks earlier? Syndergaard had a different decision.
But here's the other thing.
Question.
Here's the other thing. Managers that came off the board, I don't think any of the managers were on the Mets' radar. I don't think anyone is upset like, oh, my God, we missed out on X. The players that have signed, the Verlanders, they weren't coming here. So in my opinion, John, I don't think the Mets lost out anything during this period. AJ asked the question, maybe they lost out on Syndergaard because of it. What's your opinion on the space that it took to finally secure a GM?
Well, number one, don't just blame Twitter. Okay, blame the media that fuels Twitter for page clicks and engagements. They're the ones that came out with all of these stories, and it's not just that the media covers the Mets. It's the media in general, the baseball media in general. Hey, player X is interested in team Y. It's none of it matters. None of it matters. That in the GM search, none of it matters. It's just all rumors and speculation, and it's worse now because again, juicy rumors are put out for engagements and page clicks. Wake me up when somebody is signed, and wake me up when we get a general manager. Wake me up when we get a manager. Wake me up when we get players. That's it. It's the hot stove season has gotten way out of control. In terms of Syndergaard, whether he whether it was the lack of a GM that made him to turn him away, I think that's debatable. I don't think we're ever really going to know the truth. It certainly seemed to me like Syndergaard had it in his mind that he was going to use the qualifying offer to test the market, which is his right. I mean, he came off looking bad when he professed his love for New York and then turned around and went the other way. But listen, this seems like something that it could be best for all parties in the end.
So here's a question. Looking ahead at what's on Epler's to-do list right now, and obviously part of the high on the list is getting a manager, and we'll talk about that in a second. But also high on the list is looking at the free agent market. What is worse, if he doesn't have a manager or if he loses, say, Javi Baez, who they want, because he's still searching around for a manager? What's going to happen?
Not even a question. If you lose out on a player, it's worse than if you lose out on a manager. I would love for the Mets to hire somebody experienced. I'm done with people. I'm done with managers that learn to shave on the face of the club. I'm done with general managers the same way. But there are enough candidates out there. Like Mark said, there's enough managerial candidates still out there.
Well, Lupica is starting the drumbeats for Buck Showalter.
It's Buck. Buck
and
is the guy. I mean, if you,
I wouldn't even mind. Wouldn't even mind Brad Ausmus either. Brad Ausmus has done this before. His last job, he was fired because basically Artie Moreno wanted Joe back. So I'm not sure Brad Ausmus would be a bad hire anyway. But I would love to see Buck here. But you got to get players. You've got to get free agents. You got to. If you don't bring Javi Baez back, there's plenty of free agents that aren't attached to the qualifying offer that the Mets need to look at so that they can fortify their team without giving up any pieces or draft picks for the future.
We got about 2 minutes. So one of the things, I understand Brad Ausmus. For me, I think in this day and age, especially, listen, we haven't been in that clubhouse for 2 years, so we don't know the chemistry in that clubhouse. A guy like Brad Ausmus, a guy that doesn't have a resume of 3 Manager of the Year awards and making the playoffs in different markets like a Buck Showalter, might be hard-pressed to go to a brand-new GM and say, listen, I understand the analytics of this guy. He's a 300 hitter, but he's a cancer in the locker room. I'm not playing him. I don't think Brad Ausmus, as much as I like him, I think he might be and listen, it's also kind of like the Jimmy Carter School of Presidents. Like long after they're gone, all of a sudden they become better presidents. And we all love Terry Collins now, but Terry Collins at that point kind of realized, all right, this is my last chance. I'm not rocking the boat. I'm going to go with management. I think Brad Ausmus might also fall in that same boat.
The difference, the contrasting opinion quickly on this is he of a generation that has passed him? He's a control freak. We know that for a fact. When he was at Baltimore, he had a board in his office with every player in the organization. In terms of doing that, listening to management and relating to today's players, has time passed Buck by? Now, it did with Tony La Russa. We had questions about that last year, but you got to wonder if the same thing is there somebody who is slightly different generationally better for the club.
Well, before you answer that, John, AJ, Adam Jones, would you consider him a player? He's not that old that he was Andrew Jones is a contemporary, and he got the best out of Andrew Jones. I mean, the Orioles players, other than the fact that
that was how many years ago?
Only 4 years ago. Go ahead, John.
I think it's unfair to put Buck Showalter in a box of being an older guy who's a control freak, and who hasn't learned anything through time. You mentioned Terry Collins. Terry Collins probably went too far from one extreme to the other. But when you look at managers like Dusty Baker hasn't the game hasn't passed him by. Tony La Russa, everybody thought that the problem with Tony La Russa was going to be his relationship with the players. And as it turns out, that wasn't the problem with Tony La Russa. His players and the manager and Tony generally got along. It was the X's and O's of the game that Tony La Russa was so good at that seemed to have passed him by this season. So I think it's unfair to put Buck in a box like that. I don't think he would be necessarily contrarian to management. I think he would get along well. Yeah, maybe he's a control freak, but in another sense, you can call it preparedness. I don't think Buck is a bad hire for any of the reasons that narrative gives us, if that makes sense.
All right, Johnny. Well, we got to go. We'll speak to you next week. John Coppinger, heard here each and every week on Sports Talk New York. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, Bobby Valentine joins us, so keep it tuned right here.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening, and we are excited because joining us now is a man who played in the major leagues for 10 years for the Los Angeles Dodgers, California Angels, New York Mets, Seattle Mariners. After his playing career, he became one of the most colorful managers in baseball during the last decade of the 20th century, managing the Texas Rangers, New York Mets, Boston Red Sox in major leagues, as well as in the Nippon Professional Baseball League. He's always been candid and outspoken through his career. He's teamed up with a good friend of ours, baseball author Peter Gollenbach, to give us a riveting new book looking back on his 40 years of baseball. It leaves no great story untold. It is a pleasure to welcome back to our show one of our favorite guests, the one and only Bobby Valentine. Bobby V to Sports Talk New York. The only regret that I have today, Bobby, when that you're coming on, is that I didn't get to introduce you as mayor-elect. But it's still always great having you on. So thanks for being on with us tonight. How you doing?
Great, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah. I did 6 months of giving my life to that routine of running for mayor, and it was quite the experience. Fell a couple hundred votes short, but sure did get an experience.
Yeah, it was great. I mean,
shaking babies and kissing hands, right?
It's funny.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we were watching it from afar in New York, and it's like the one time that I really cared about any election in Connecticut. But so tell us how. I mean, Peter Gollenbach is a great friend of the show. Tell us how this collaboration with Peter came about, and how did you and Peter work to get all these stories put together in this amazing book?
Well, thanks. Yeah, Valentine's Way was Peter's idea. He gave me a call one day, and he's from Stamford, Connecticut, lived in New Canaan, Connecticut also. Now he lives down in Florida. He's written many a great sports book and a very good author. And I just picked up the phone, and he said, "Hey, by the way, you have any time?" I said, "Very little." He said, "How about a couple hours a week for the next 30 weeks. And I said, I think we could do something like that. And before you knew it, we had a book. It was published, and I think he did a really good job on it.
Peter always does great work. And the beauty of this book is, no matter how many times we've had you on the show, no matter how many times you do research on a subject, it's books like this that you really learn about the people who shaped the individual. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact that John Sharkey, Loreno, Al Judge, and Stash Borowski had on you, and what you learned from them?
Oh, good for you. Yeah, in my childhood here in Stamford, Connecticut, I got to play in Little League and Babe Ruth League and American Legion. And, at the time, back in the 60s, baseball was kind of Stamford was kind of the baseball capital of New England, if not the world. We had the first Little League World Series champion. We had the first Babe Ruth League champion. Our teams traveled all across the country, and it was quite the situation. This John Sharkey Loreno, who was a mailman by trade and a coach by night, was one of the most spectacular guys around. He took teams to Texas and California and Maine and all across the country. And I was lucky enough to play on a couple of his all-star teams. Stav Borowski was my Babe Ruth League coach, who coached the Holy Name Babe Ruth League team in Stamford, Connecticut. And interestingly enough, my brother wound up marrying his daughter. And with the Judge and other great coaches in the area, I just found out about baseball at an early age. I learned the fundamentals. I understood, how to tag up properly, what a delayed steal was, how to squeeze, how to read the rule book and understand the rules, so that when you're playing, if there's ever a question, you would know what's going on. And they really cared about me and cared about others. And, that was one of the lucky things that happened to me in my life.
Ironic, too, that he was a mailman, because one of the great stories in the book that you talk about is, you signing your first contract in your mailman's uniform. But you talk about your time in the Cape Cod League, and it's so obvious within like the first 10 pages of this book that Bobby Valentine is out Kevin Bacon's Kevin Bacon, because there's a connection to everyone in the world to Bobby Valentine. including your Cape Cod manager, who, believe it or not, right before we went on air, I just got off a Zoom conference call with him for the New York Islanders. So can you tell our audience who your Cape Cod manager was? And additionally, a story about a Cape Cod catcher that here in the New York area we might know a little bit about, that you tell a great story in the book about.
Yeah, well, I was playing high school baseball here in Stamford, and this aforementioned coach was the assistant hockey coach and assistant baseball coach at Providence College. The assistant basketball coach at Providence College was from Stamford, Connecticut, and the two coaches decided to have dinner together in Stamford, and then they stayed over to watch a baseball game. And in that baseball game, I had one of those days where I ran around the bases a lot and made some defensive plays and hit the ball pretty far. And after the game, Lou Lamorello came over to me and said, "Hey, son, are your parents here? I'd like to talk to them." And I said, "Sure." And I introduced this stranger to my mom and dad, who introduced himself to my mom and dad as the assistant baseball coach at Providence College, who at 24 years old was going to be the Yarmouth baseball coach in the Cape Cod League. And while he's talking to my mom and dad, he said that he'd like to have this high school player that I was, a junior in high school at the time, come up and play in the Cape Cod League for him, and that he would take care of him, and that he understood being away from home was a real challenge, and that he'd give every bit of loving care that anyone could give to make sure that I was doing the right thing at the right time. And sure enough, my parents, who really, had no idea where Providence College was, where Cape Cod was, what the Cape Cod Baseball League was. But after talking to the who's who in town, including Ron Ferenti, my high school coach, and Sharky Lorino, that Babe Ruth League baseball coach and friend of the family, everyone decided it would be a good thing for me to do. So I went to Cape Cod and I played, and I hit like 296 leading off for the Yarmouth Indians that summer, and a lot of professional scouts saw me. And the reason they saw me is they were scouting a lot of other people, including the guy who was the number one draft choice for the Yankees the next year after he graduated from Kent State University. Thurman Munson was the catcher, Chatham, and I was the center fielder in Yarmouth, and we got to play against each other. And he was the number 4 pick in the draft, and I was the number 5 pick in the draft. The Yankees took him, and the Dodgers took me, which is really amazing, because I think I know that I would have rather had the Yankees take me, and because I grew up a Yankee fan my whole life. So. Yeah, he was there. And as a matter of fact, he was the talkative guy. Everyone knows about Thurman talking all the time. And, he was talking the first at-bat that I had in that league. And I was standing beside the box, kind of timing the pitcher. And the first thing he did is said, "Son, we don't do that in this league, because that big guy out on the mound will stick one into your ear if you do that." So I said, "Yes, sir. Thank you very much." And then he complimented me on a play that I made. And then he predicted what he was going to do next. And I think you have to read the book to find out what that was.
Awesome. So, some of the early Dodger stuff in the book was just amazing. And you add in the fact that you're only 21 years old at the time, that first year, full year. And you mentioned some of the influences that I wouldn't say not only shaped your baseball, but kind of shaped the way you looked at things. And the two that stood out to me were Dick Allen and Willie Davis. Can you share what those two meant to your evolution as a person, more so than your playing career?
Oh, Richie Allen and Willie Davis were, two of the stars on the team, and they kind of took me under their wings. Richie called me little bro, and Willie and I kind of hung around together a little because, we were the two fastest guys on the team. And I think if Richie ever ran a race with us, it would be neck and neck, the three of us. But Willie was called the 3 dog and I was called the 2 dog because I wore number 2 and he wore number 3. And when Richie came in 71, that first year, came to the Dodgers, he's a little different than most other people on the Dodgers, and I guess I was too. And so we kind of hung out together, and I got to see for the first time, because Stamford, Connecticut was probably as diverse a city as there was in New England at the time. My 6th grade class had 40% of the guys and gals in the class didn't look like me, and I didn't know what really was going on other than, the crazy protests that were happening in 69, 68, and 69 when I was out in LA, and I was trying to figure out how to straighten out the world when I got with Richie, and he started telling me some of the stories of his minor league escapades and about the things that were thrown at him and said to him in Little Rock, Arkansas. I guess we just became kind of akin, and they were good guys who, like I said, took me under their wing, and I'm happy that I was friends of theirs.
There's an interesting story that you tell about how when you were playing for Spokane and you were beamed during a playoff game in Hawaii, you ended up being treated by a fan, a visiting Japanese plastic surgeon. Can you share some of that with our listeners, and how 37 years later you'll learn why the doctor didn't stay around for you to thank him?
Well, it's amazing that, after playing every inning of every game in AAA and leading the league in hitting in 7 different categories offensively, I was beamed on the first pitch of the last game of the playoffs. We were playing in Hawaii, and, at those times there were no flaps, and this 90-plus mile-an-hour fastball kind of tailed in, and I went back instead of turning away. I kind of moved back, and the ball just followed me. It hit my cheekbone and pushed it down 3.5 inches. And before I knew it, I was in the Oahu emergency room in downtown Waikiki, and someone was going to operate on my face. And interestingly enough, 2 people jumped out of the stands and walked with me off the field. And when I say walked with me off the field, there was a lot of blood and my face was sunken in, but I was the tough guy and I didn't want the stretcher. So I told everyone, I said, I'm going to walk off the field. And there were fights breaking out over at third base, and Tommy Paciorek was chasing the pitcher out into center field, and Lasorda was yelling at Chuck Tanner. And I mean, it was a crazy scene that I walked through to get out to center field where our clubhouse was. And when I got there, there was an ambulance, and I got in the ambulance with one guy who is the father of my best friend, Zach Manassian. Eddie Manassian was Tommy Lasorda's very good friend back in the day. And Zach Manassian is the father of Perry Manassian, who's the general manager of the California or the LA Angels, and also the father of Zach Manassian Jr. is the vice president of the San Francisco Giants, interestingly enough. But anyway, their grandfather, or Zach's father, and Zach was my very good friend who was the clubhouse boy when I first got to Ogden, Utah. Zach's dad and this other fella walked me to the ambulance and got into the ambulance and went to the hospital. And it turned out the guy that walked with us was a renowned plastic surgeon. And he was a Dodger fan, and he was in the stands to watch the Dodgers AAA team play in the playoffs. And when he got to the hospital, I guess his credential was wired back to LA, and Dr. Bob Curlin, who is the father of orthopedic surgery and also the Dodgers doctor at the time, recognized the name of this plastic surgeon and gave the okay to the hospital to allow him to work on this Dodger player who was in the emergency room. And he did a wonderful job. Normally, they would just open up your face in those days. A lot of guys got beaten in those days, and you'd cut along your cheek, and then you'd open it up and you'd fix the cheekbone or whatever had to be fixed, and then you'd sew up the incision, and it would leave you as a scar face. I remember Jimmy Davenport, if anybody remembers him, had an amazing scar in his face, and Tony C had a scar up high on his face. And anyway, this doctor happened to shave my head, and then he cut my skull open and went down with like a stainless steel miniature crowbar and pulled it up and put my cheekbone in place, and then cut me a little along a crease underneath my eye to make sure there were no bone chips that might be floating around. And I laid in the hospital for another 10 days with my head all bandaged up, wrapped up like a mummy, waiting to see 10 days later when they would unwrap the wrapping to see if I would be able to see okay. But anyway, this doctor showed up, did the operation, and left. I never met him when I was conscious. And I found out his name. He was a Japanese surgeon. And I spent many a year in Japan. And I always mentioned his name and told the story. And he never came forward, and I never got to meet him. And then finally, about 36 or 7 years later, when I was managing there, my interpreter during batting practice came over to me and said there was somebody who wanted to meet me under the stands. And I went under the stands by our clubhouse, and there was a guy in a suit, a Japanese fellow standing there. He gave me his business card. It said Dr. Nakamura, and it said that he was a plastic surgeon, but he was younger than I was, so I knew this couldn't be the guy. So I said, "What is this? Who are you?" He says, "I'm the son of the surgeon who's operated on you." And I said, "Well, why didn't I ever meet your dad? Can I meet him, please?" He says, "No, he died last year." And I said, "But why, if you know, didn't I ever meet him?" And he said, "Well, he was in LA for the convention, and my mom didn't know that he spent the 3 days in Hawaii on the way back to Japan." So I guess it's a ha-ha situation. I don't know what he was doing other than watching. But I would have liked to have met him.
Yeah, in reading that, and another part that's, again, like that Kevin Bacon moment, which, and we just have to get this, because the one of the reasons why Bobby also got, beamed in that game was because of a batting title race, and the announcer of the Wahoo's team was Al Michaels. Is another, but like this book is like almost like a Curb Your Enthusiasm, because everything just comes around. Your admiration for Tommy comes through so strongly in the book, and I have to imagine trying to pare down. I'm sure there could have just been a book about you and Tommy that would fill 300 pages, but the unbelievable thing is you never get the opportunity to play for Tommy as a Dodger, as you get traded to the Angels. You touch on it briefly by stating you could have been a Dodger for the next 20 years. Which do you regret more, that you weren't a Dodger, or the fact that you never got to play a major league game for Tommy?
Yeah, I wish I could have played for Tommy in the major leagues, for any team, but, in particular for the Dodgers. If they, I was crazy and wild. After I got beamed, I decided I was going to play in a flag football game. The flag football game in college turned out to be basically the end of my career, because I got clipped, and instead of being the starting shortstop the next year for the Dodgers, I was a starting right fielder part-time, because I wore a big brace and wasn't able to run and have the ability that I once had. So, Tommy got there right after I got traded. And the only time we were in a Major League Baseball uniform together was when I got to manage the 2001 All-Star game. I got the commissioner to give special permission to allow me to have a extra coach, and I had Tommy in uniform with me for that game.
At which point he almost gave you a heart attack with Guerrero at bat.
So, there's one Tommy Lasorda story that sort of leaves me hanging a bit. And so how he'd have when he was managing the minor leagues, he said, you have the players write letters to the people whose basically jobs they were going after in the major leagues. And you wrote one of those letters, and it didn't help you when you got to the Dodgers, and Maury Wills, who was supposed to mentor you, mentioned the letter. So did you ever ask Tommy why he had players write those letters?
Oh, that was just Tommy's style. He wanted us to think that when we were in rookie ball that we should be in the major leagues. And, he wanted to make sure that everyone knew about this group of guys that he had. It was a pretty special group. As it turned out, that 1968 draft that Tommy managed many of in rookie ball in 1968, as it turned out, many people say it's the best minor league team ever because cumulatively there were more major league games played by the Dodgers players who were drafted in 1968 than in any other draft in history. So at the time, somehow Tommy knew that, Pashorik and Garvey and Buckner and Valentine and Say and others were going to make their mark. And he wanted to make sure that everyone was ready when we got there.
We could literally, without question, spend an entire show on each and every chapter. So I'm jumping around here. I mean, there's great stories about the fact that, you get to work for a future president who used the warning track at Arlington Stadium as his jogging path and would hang out and talk baseball with you. The Met chapter, absolutely. The way you got hired is absolutely fascinating. The obstacles that were in your way, that we didn't know about, just the Levinsons and their clients, their preconceived notions, makes the 2000 trip to the World Series even more remarkable, everything that you had to overcome to get there. But for me, trying to tie things into modern day, the Boston Red Sox chapter to me was both amazing and scary because it really shows that no matter how good a manager you bring in, if there's already an ingrained culture that's allowed to stay there, there's nothing you can do to change it. So it actually made me think about what lies ahead for Billy Epler. As media, we have not been in the Mets clubhouse for 2 years, so we have no clue as to what the climate in that locker room is. So how important will it be for Billy Epler to have almost complete trust in his manager to accept his input? Obviously, you didn't have that with Phillips, but let's say a manager says, listen, I know the analytics says this guy is a great player for us, but he's a clubhouse cancer. Is it important for the next manager of the Mets to be a guy with a proven track record, like a Bobby Valentine or a Buck Showalter, who that GM can trust?
Well, I think that the idea that Billy needs to form a team with his manager is very important. I'm not sure how important all that experience is, unless it's the good experience, unless it's experience, with a team similar to this team, or some way that the experience can relate. I just wouldn't say that that's the biggest point. I think the biggest point is that Steve Cohen, who is the owner, needs to have his attitude filter down through the general manager, through the manager to the players and to minor leagues, because I think he has the right attitude. And I just think that Billy Epler kind of gets that, because working with Steinbrenner and then with Cashman and then himself through the managers that he saw with the Yankees, he understands how important that attitude filtration system is. Obviously, it's established in California, but I think that experience is what's important. The experience that Billy has had, and hopefully he can learn from the experience he had, because I think he's a good guy. He lived in Stamford, Connecticut, when he was with the Yankees. So I got to know him, and I think that, he's made of the right stuff. All he has to do now is get the right people around him. And I think he'll be able to do that. But once again, just thinking that if you can turn it over to someone who's going to be that manager who, tries to control every situation that there is, I don't think that kind of experience is what's necessary. You need someone who's adaptable, someone who's adjustable, someone who has experience, but can make sure that today's world is part of the team that he's managing, because it's a different world right now than even last year or 2 years ago before COVID. The world has changed.
Well, if you are on Billy's short list, I pray that Sandy Alderson doesn't read the book before you get an interview. But Bobby, thanks so much for your time tonight. Every baseball fan needs to get this book. Where's the best place for them to get it? It's a great gift for the baseball fan in your family. Tell them where's the best place to get it.
Oh, you guys are great. Yeah, Amazon's the easiest place. It's out there. It's easy. It has delivery dates early December, so you'll be able to get it by Christmas. And I think it is a pretty good read. So I appreciate you guys taking the time and letting me be on the show to talk about it.
We always love having you on.
It's a really good read.
It's a really great book. I mean, when you team Bobby Valentine up with Peter Golenbach, you're going to get gold. And it's, the stuff with Frank, everything, every single time I said, whoa, it's like it was amazing.
Explaining what happened with the glasses and hat and mustache.
Everything, the 9/11 stuff. Listen, no matter how many times at Met Fantasy Camp the guys talk about you and what you meant to them, that chapter was riveting. And even, I had the opportunity to speak to you the day when they did the Zooms and everything, but just a riveting chapter. So everything about it. Like I said, the only regret tonight was not being able to say, mayor-elect. But Bobby, as always, thanks so much for your time.
Anytime, anything. Thanks, guys.
You got it.
Appreciate your time.
All right, you got it. The great Bobby Valentine. Great new book, Valentine's Way. Pick it up on Amazon. Quick break on the other side. Russ Cohn joins us to talk the NHL, so keep it right here.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back. If you are just tuning in, you just missed a fascinating, riveting 30 minutes with Bobby Valentine on his new book, Valentine's Way, co-written with our great friend, Peter Golenbach. Great book. Pick it up for sure. So many great stories. It's time now, though, for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey.
Hey, what's table hockey?
What's table hockey, you ask? I feel like we're Passover.
I just asked that.
All right. Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games, designed a whole new board for the future, handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to AJ's age can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more. Start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, your center ice logo, and even the team matchup. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. If you are,
is it like knock hockey?
No, it's not like knock hockey. If you are designing a game and you are designing the Islanders, you're going to be short about 6 or 7 players. This is just.
Do they have a COVID version of Soho Table Hockey?
They do.
Ooh, ow.
So, so the interesting thing is, Russ, last night up in the press box when the Islanders took a penalty for too many men on the ice, We said, how's that possible? They don't have enough players to have too many men on the ice. But realistically, I mean, you have to feel for the players like the Lees and the Baileys, who, you know, the captain and the longest tenured Islander, not to be able to partake in that first opening night at UBS. And I was very careful to make sure I said UBS. I don't want to be.
I know. I heard about the lad.
Yeah, no big deal.
All the things you can get by being on the road. You know, that's dangerous.
You know, like, you know, and on top of it, here's the bottom line is tonight, again, understaffed against another very good team in Toronto. Wednesday, possibly, you know, there could be 2 positive tests by then, so maybe they get some of the players back. But, you know, they're digging themselves a hole in a conference and division where everyone's playing well. Is it too early to say that, you know, they might not ever get out of this hole that they've dug?
I mean, it's a little early to say it, but it's not too early to say if they don't go on a tear of, like, I don't know, 650 hockey, they may not be able to get into contention. Like, that's fair to say. And we didn't know about all these things that would happen, that's for sure. But we did know they were going to go on a road trip. We did know they sort of spent their last pennies on any kind of free agency and then cleared some, you know, last minute cap space to try and, you know, do something. So they did everything they could to kind of set up for this season, but there were still mistakes made. Like, why did Varlamov never get sent down for a conditioning assignment? He is not playing like the guy of last year or the year before. Why? Because you can't walk into an NHL season without any preseason and just play and expect great results.
Right. I totally agree. We discussed that. Additionally, here's another thing. You know, you're getting the opportunity because of the Pulak injury to see Aho and Salo because of Green with the COVID. If Aho and Salo play well in this little audition period, is the clock ticking on Zdeno Chara's career as an Islander?
I mean, I don't think so, only because at the end of the day, Chara's playing like that Hal Gill role, which means you're just trying to get him through the regular season so you have him in the playoffs. That's when he could really help you. Will they ever make it to the playoffs? Who knows? So it could be what you said if they find in, you know, near the trading deadline that they're not going to make the playoffs. Then he's gone. No question about it. But if there's still playoff hopes, they're going to hold on to him because that's the hope, is to have a guy like that patrolling your around your net to keep guys out of the crease when they're jamming it in the playoffs. So
Rangers suffer what Twitterverse and Ranger fans feel a devastating injury. I see it as more of an opportunity for Julien Gauthier to maybe show what he really can do. How tough is the Sammy Blais injury for the Rangers? And do you think they need to make any move to replace him, or is Gauthier every bit the player that Sammy is?
No, I think Gauthier can play the role. I think fans thought it was devastating because even though he only had like 4 points, they just liked the style of play. But again, I felt like the Rangers are too invested in too many guys like this. Actually, Gauthier has more of an offensive side than Blais, and maybe if you divvied up more of those Blais minutes, you might be able to get Lafreniere some real minutes and get more points out of him. So I just felt like this gave more opportunity to other players on the team. It stinks that it happened to them, and now the Rangers will have to wait till March to kind of get their frontier justice on that against Subban.
All right, Russ Cohen, heard here and every week with the Soho Table Hockey Report. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, you know what time it is. It's going to be time for Joe Jackson and AJ's Sunday Papers, so keep it tuned right here.
If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
You can read it in the Sunday papers.
You know what that music means? It means it's time for AJ's Weird Story of the Week. What do you got for us, AJ?
Well, this one actually is not Sunday. This is in the New York Post during the week. And if you're wondering what's been going on with Mike Tyson, and by the way, kids, don't try this at home. Mike Tyson's done some really weird things during his life, most of them chronicled. The latest one is he's into psychotropic, psychedelic drugs, including toad venom. He's joined, but is apparently a cult of people who smoke toad venom. And he says he did it as a dare. He says he was doing heavy drugs like cocaine, so why not? He said that, and during his first trip, he felt like he died. He came back from the death to say how wonderful it is. This guy is doing bizarre stuff. If you're wondering what his mind, he said the toad venom has, quote, made him be more creative and helped him focus. He's more present as a businessman and entrepreneur, which, by the way, includes commercial production of marijuana. He said people see the difference. So if you knew me in 1989, you were a different person. My mind isn't sophisticated enough to fathom what happened, but life has improved. I don't know. I don't go near these things. I've never gone near these things.
I just don't even, to me,
toad venom.
It's almost like the Simpsons episode where, the blowfish in the park behind it. Like how do you even think of toad venom might be something I could trip on?
Right. This is like, in the old days, it was like peyote. It was something out there. That was the weird, way out there.
Weird things like how the
or LSD, but
that thought
toad venom, right? Take the venom from the toad and see what happens. And now we see what happens. You become Mike Tyson, and
But the key is, I mean, if we really want to get the behind the science of the toad venom. It's a perfect transition to the NFL report, because I think we should.
Mike Tyson is singing the praises of toad venom and saying how horrible it was that he smoked.
Listen, I think we need to get Aaron Rodgers and Joe Rogan's take on it, because they are the
right, and see if maybe I'll find out.
All right, it's time now for the NFL report with Jay Retcher.
Enough.
Winter is around the corner, so you need to make sure you take care of those screen doors, get your storm doors set, and the Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty. So I think it's important that you contact ClearviewLongIsland.com.
Who's lifetime?
Give them I'm not even going to make a bad joke at your age expense, AJ. I'm sorry about that. It's a lifetime. That could be a 1-year guarantee. Call them at 631-440-1100 or visit them on the web at ClearviewLongIsland.com. All right, Jay. So first of all, I know you're at the Tampa Bay Lightning game, because there is no Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, so you need to be doing something. What's the score right now there?
They just scored. Sorelli just scored, so it's now 3-2 over the Wild. But good to see Matt Zuccarello again. One of my favorite all-time Rangers. But not the cleanest game of tonight. But we're talking hockey now, but we got football tomorrow night. Everybody's jacked up for Buccaneers Giants, because they don't know. Nobody really knows what the heck's going on with the NFL. I mean, the Titans and the Texans. Come on, man. The NFL might be taking some of those psychedelics that you guys were just talking about.
So is this the type of week where you're saying, because it's been such a weird week, that the Giants actually have a chance against Brady?
100%. 100%, brother. It's just one of those years, man. The last thing I said on my show on Friday was, watch the Texans go out and beat the Titans. My co-host says, no way. There's no chance. I go, bro, this is the kind of year. If you're looking at any kind of football, pro, college, high school, Pop Warner, flag football, lingerie football, there's just been incredible. You just don't know, man. The smartest people I know in all of sports, especially in the game of football, I've talked to, Bob Glover being one of them, longtime guy with Newsday and head writer of the Pro Football Writers. Bob goes, Jay, I have no idea, and I've been watching the sport my whole life. So, yeah, man, why the heck not? Why can't the Giants win a game?
So, looking ahead, though, don't the Bucs really have something to prove? Don't they go out to this game with a chip on their shoulder?
I don't know, man. It's been kind of funky, because especially with all the teams in the NFC South losing again. So it's like, people say, oh, well, they got to win this game. They're in trouble if they lose this game. They lose this game, they're still 6-4. They're still in first place. They have such a long-term mentality of, hey, we're trying to go deep in the playoffs and win back-to-back Super Bowls. Yeah, I mean, would it be surprising if the Giants won? I guess, because the Bucs, they're the defending Super Bowl champions, and we don't know what we're getting from the Giants week to week. But surprising and shocked after what we've seen so far through the first, half of the season, I can't say I would be, man, because the Giants, listen, you guys know, the Giants have talent. It's not about talent. It's just about putting it all together and coaching. We'll see what happens, but I'm anticipating some craziness tomorrow night.
It's also very, the division is wild because you never know what you're going to get week to week from the Cowboys, the Eagles,
Right.
the Washington football team, or the Giants. That might be the most dysfunctional conference in all of football because week to week, those teams
we don't know if you're getting good defense or good offense or neither or
I don't know
both.
what's the identity of any of those teams in the NFC East? I don't even know.
We don't know. And 2 weeks ago, everybody was telling me, "Oh, Dallas is a Super Bowl contender." Really? That's what you guys think? That's not what I'm seeing. Listen, when people say, "Give me the most consistent team," somebody asked me last week, and I go, "I don't know, Tennessee." And then Tennessee goes out and loses to Houston today. I mean, Green Bay was another option. They go lose to Minnesota today. So you just don't know. You think you know a team, and then all of a sudden they go out and they poop the bed and they lose to a team, not just an even team or a team slightly worse than them, way worse than them. So who the heck knows? This could be like the ultimate parody year in the NFL.
Is there a real takeaway, particularly of that Minnesota Green Bay game, looking ahead, that you learned something from that? Forget up the weird upsets today. Is there anything actually you learned something generally about a team that carries on to next week?
Hey, and I wish I could say there was. I think Green Bay was one of those teams. They're still trying to figure it out as far as offensively. I don't think Rodgers is back to 100%, but I say that, and he throws that touchdown at the end of the game to tie it up. Minnesota's a really good team running the football, so they do a good job. They're kind of the perfect antidote for Green Bay, being able to run the football and keep Rodgers off the field. But, next week Minnesota could go lose a game by 20, and Green Bay could go win a game by 20. So, no, I wish I could tell you I did notice something in that game, but I watched a good chunk of it. I still think it's the same deal with those two teams.
More importantly, before we let you go, is there a surprise team in the lingerie football league?
The Tampa used to have a pretty good team, brother, and then they went to Seattle and won 3 championships. KK Matheny, they called her the Drew Brees of the lingerie football league, man.
Jay,
Look her up.
Jay,
Look her up.
I'm worried, Jay. I'm worried. All right, we won't speak to you next week. Next week, obviously, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, a best of. We'll speak to you in 2 weeks, and everyone is busy Googling the lingerie football league. All right, we'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll round it out with NBA talk with Chaim Tauber, so keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DeFrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to the home stretch of Sports Talk New York. But guess what? AJ and I will be a special guest of BT Talks Baseball right after this for a few minutes with an important announcement about an event we're doing in a couple of weeks. So make sure even if we weren't on, to stay tuned to BT Talks
Mark it on your calendar.
Well, we'll talk about it afterwards. Right now,
Okay.
let's not cut into Chaim's time. Chaim, I guess the big news in the NBA is we have a coach being fired. A guy.
Luke Walton has shown once again that it was the players, not the coach, when he took over Steve Kerr. Maybe Steve Kerr was running the practices. As he flamed out again at a second head coaching job. What do you make of it, Chaim?
Yeah, I think there's no question that Luke Walton was able to build his reputation off of Steve Kerr's team. And that has basically led to him to have 2 other jobs. Now, I don't think he had much of a fighting chance in Los Angeles. There just wasn't anything there. It was a wasteland. But yeah, he hasn't done anything to necessarily prove himself other than take what's arguably the greatest team of all time to a good season. This is a team that has a lot of young talent. They are underperforming. They're in the middle of a youth skid yet again. And yeah, there's not enough there to justify Luke Walton staying. Alvin Gentry was hired with the thought that he could replace Luke Walton should and would he get fired. And that came to fruition.
So looking ahead to other teams, take a look. Now, the Knicks have had a bumpy past couple of weeks, and they seem to have third quarter problems. We talked about some of this last week. What do you make going forward? Will Thibodeau have to change the lineup? He's going to get a little more playing time to Emmanuel Quickly, to Obi Toppin. Will they start? What does have to happen with the Knicks in the next week to have them sort of right a ship. And even the wins they've had they've been squeaking out wins.
Well, yeah, no, look, weirdly enough, Chicago might be something, that might have been something of a get-right game in terms of refocusing them. That was their best performance of the season early in the season. They have to figure out roles. They have players bumping into each other, not really knowing how to work cohesively. They're not getting out on the perimeter defensively, which was a staple of their success last season. They have to figure out, kind of find that eye of the tiger, for lack of a better term, figure out everybody's roles and get right back to it.
It is amazing that, all the excitement that we were looking for the Knicks, and we felt that they added, we thought that Kemba Walker was going to be a big part of this team. And
he still hasn't found his role yet.
Right.
I mean, he has some good games and others. Again, you take a look, the unit that's playing much more cohesively is that second unit.
Right.
And they're exciting.
Yeah, there's no question about the Knicks' best basketball is when that bench gets in. No question about it.
Which is not what we thought was going to be. Right. I mean, Julian Randle's not had a great start either.
Right now, the New York Knicks are underperforming. They are not meeting expectations, and those expectations were elevated.
And speaking of underperforming, before we let you go, Lakers, LeBron's been out. How bad are things out there in La La Land?
It's ugly. I mean, they're nowhere near what and where they're supposed to be. They were supposed to be something of a lock in the West, and LeBron coming back needs to fix a lot of problems really quickly because they're a damaged team right now.
All right, Chaim. We appreciate it. No show next week. It's a best of. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll speak to you the week after. Happy Hanukkah. That's going to happen before we speak to you again as well. All right, Chaim Tauber heard each and every week, with the exception of next week,
right?
With the NBA report. We are closing out the show again. We wish all of our listeners just nothing but the best. Because listen,
watch a lot of football. Don't eat too much turkey.
And just be careful. We know that this year is more gathering than we've had in the last 2 years.
Right.
But still be safe out there. Obviously, this is not done. You take a look at what's going on with the New York Islanders, and that's all you need to know.
The upside that you're wearing masks is you eat less.
Right. All right, everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you in 2 weeks.